Before I start my talk, we all know that the dervishes don't see people's fault. But when I'm trying to explain this beautiful lady with my own assumptions, so if I actually have any kind of fault, any kind of expression that would hurt people, from the very beginning I would like to ask your apologies in front of you. Semiha Cemal was born in 1905 and passed away in 1936. She graduated from the Department of Philosophy of Istanbul University in 1926, and after a period as an assistant, she began teaching philosophy and psychology at high schools to raise human beings. She has various works and also done translations of philosophy texts. She has contributed greatly to the creation of a language of philosophy in Turkey. In my opinion, her tasawwuf upbringing allowed her to comment on ancient Greek philosophy in the best way. Semiha Cemal melted her ego in Kenan Rifai's wisdom-filled and tasawwuf-adorned existence, and had been an exceptional student and a lover of truth. So when reading her prose pieces, you can really feel the love in her. As a student, her teachers actually greatly admired her understanding, her comprehension, her perseverance, and her power of reasoning. Yusuf Ziya, in a pamphlet published under his supervision, writes the following about Semiha Cemal. Please read Dawood's Psalms at least once. You will see that their inspiration is from the same spring. As I was reading this piece, I thought the following: if this girl were to come up and say that I'm inspired by Allah, and this is my proof, undoubtedly I would be the first believer. Today people are leaning towards tasawwuf or other teachings to develop their inner worlds in modern life, but we have difficulty practicing, putting these into practices, these teachings and tasawwuf. So we really want to be understood in this world, but unfortunately we don't actually show any endeavor. So that's why in this attempt of finding ourselves, we find these very utopic. So when we actually become a member of a group, we do this to run away from punishment or to cover our feelings of revenge. But we know that when we actually are initiated by a path, or when we enter upon a path, it's due to a desire to know oneself as the result of even tasawwuf as a trend. Yesterday we watched the video, her first initiation by Kenan Rifai. If I'm not mistaken, she said she was writing letters, poetry, and there was something burning inside of me. So she was actually mentioning a kind of a longing. So this kind of is looking for, this seeking is actually coming from the chest, from the heart. So that's what I'd like to say. So in our era, the divine knowledge or Far Eastern kind of teachings, we are approaching these just because they are trends, but our inner structure, our inner part does never ever change. Tasawwuf makes us actually close to ourselves. It doesn't alienate ourselves from ourself. It doesn't otherize ourselves. So it actually requires determination, commitment to put into practice tasawwuf teachings, because Ashk, divine love, means movement. It's the source of movements. So that is exactly what Semiha Cemal's source of movement is. That's Ashk and Gönül, illuminated heart. Her heart was so naive, so pure, that Kenan Rifai said, when I look at her, I see my own reflection. So she is actually, because of this love awakened in her, she's in the social life in body, but with her heart, she's away from all the materialism. Because in Tasawwuf, you know, intellect is also very important. Without intellect, we cannot mention a single action. But intellect is actually a means, but we shouldn't actually ignore it, but we should transcend it, because intellect, because Ashk make us do things that intellect opposes. So this is actually in Tasawwuf the akıl, the intellect of heart, of Ashk. So before Semiha Cemal met Kenan Rifai, intellect had a leading role in her life, but then she submitted her intellect in the love of her murshid. So throughout her life there is deep faith which cannot be actually dependent on form. So nowadays we actually are trying to be knowledgeable, pursue our careers, and become a part of social life so that we can make ourselves happy. We try to gain every kind of knowledge, but such an attempt actually makes us unhappy, because this is just the shell of the real life, the real knowledge. The real knowledge is the knowledge of the illuminated heart. The modern era's biggest problem is that people show no effort in order to enhance their inner world. And as you know, the Prophet says, I have come here to complete beautiful conduct. And as we know, Islam is submission. It's actually submission to love itself, to Ashk itself. So if we actually do not submit to real divine love, Ashk, we cannot become a whole human being. So here, the obstacle, the problematic about making us really faithful is that if Allah suffices everything, why do we have the evil in this world? Everything, she says, Semiha Cemal, is good. People think when they do actually something bad, evil, they think it's good, but they are just cross-eyed. So let's actually give two people as an example. The first one likes flowers, and the second one, both love flowers. The first one picks up the flowers, and the other one, the first one is actually also an action of loving, because you pick it up. A picked flower, as you very well know, run and fade away. It will not actually be non-existent, but nobody has this knowledge, because this is a different manifestation of love. So as you see, the good and the bad, the good and the evil, as different in different degrees, is actually found in one human being. So whichever side we are nourishing, or dependent on how we receive love, how we perceive love. The most important thing here is actually to perceive love as a whole, and the wholeness here, the oneness here, is Allah. So such a person actually thinks globally. So that person treats each and every object, not only people, equally. That's why dervishes do not actually step on the ground in very strongly or harshly, and such behavior we can see in Semiha Cemal's life. In her work called Ashk, Divine Love, she says, love is such a sea. Those who are drowned, immersed in it, there is no complaint. And look at the bottom of the sea. there is nothing but silence. No noise, no voice. All the noise and voice and these waves are on the surface of the sea, but there is one spirit, and this is actually just love. And in the other one, he says, if you don't exist, my Murshid, I wouldn't know Allah. If you weren't there, I wouldn't have known love. If there hadn't been love, I wouldn't have known you. She said this for her teacher. So those who know philosophy will recognize Plato's cave allegory. How strange it is that reality always comes out from a dark cave. There are people chained within a cave ever since their birth, and there is a fire that continuously burns at the entrance of the cave. These people think that the shadows of the beings passing behind this fire are actual beings. But one day, one of them frees herself from these chains and goes out of this dark cave. And the person who leaves the cave after freeing herself from the chains realizes that this world is not made of just a cave. And later, and this person, which is actually the hardest thing to achieve, goes back to the cave to tell the people who are chained and whose eyes have become accustomed to such darkness that this is not the entire world. So in philosophy, this person who exists from the cave is the philosopher, and in Tasawwuf we call such people the perfected human being. And in Semiha Cemal's life, the person who took her out of darkness of the material and united her with this light of love is Kenan Rifai. Then how does a perfect human being view another human? One day Ömer said, I love you, Prophet Muhammad, and Prophet Muhammad said, if until you love me more than your nefs, do not ever say that you love me. And Kenan Rifai also says, when you love everything that I love, then you will love me. And there is nothing that I don't love. So us ordinary humans actually categorize things, and we use our intellect, certain molds we have. So when we say a person, our mind makes distinctions. Beautiful person, good person, wise person, bad person. Whereas for those who think with their illuminated heart, there is only just human being. And like every other being, Allah is manifest. So if we were to ask why Kenan Rifai chose Semiha Cemal as his teacher, because it will be that every voice wants an ear that will hear what he says, and not every ear hears. So everything's perception of life is different. Very few humans bring universality into their lives. The person who sees the whole picture understands that it's not just a part will give up everything they will have for the sake of love until they want nothing other than love. Before she passed away, there is this dialogue between herself and her teacher Kenan Rifai. I have nothing, no pleasure, no fun, nothing. I only have love, my dear Semiha. How poor we are. Yes, I am the sheikh of Garam, of love. She passed away when she was 31. In Tasawwuf, we know very well that you can actually only die of love and revive from love. Death is just to go from one room into another. It's a dimensional change. So for us, death is just a window in life. Death is not the end. It is just a beginning. So death, for this reason, Rumi says in Meclis-i Seba, in the 7th gathering, death by the hand of the beloved births life.